Hurry! Horses gallop at breakneck speed. A turn of the head reveals the dying embers of the sunset, surrounded by a cold winter desert. There's nowhere to hide, nowhere to take cover. Ahead looms a large stone castle with towers, battlements, sentries, and fire. It burns brightly in the darkness, the last landmark. Behind, a blizzard advances, a winter storm, cold and fierce. The small group occasionally manages to break away, only to swirl in the snow mist, trying to escape winter's trap. But today, the situation has changed. Something dark and sinister lurks in the snowstorm. Something evil prowls among the trees, first scaring the members of the group, then taking away those who lag behind or isolate themselves. And then a gnawed corpse is found, making it clear that if they don't hurry, no one will reach safety. The danger spurs the small caravan into action, making the guards more diligent in their duties, constantly watching the surrounding forest, ready to spring into action and attack the enemy at any moment. Everyone knew what was following them. Everyone was ready to howl in despair, for the pursuers never retreated. The winter's biting wind clawed at the desperate faces, sharpening the grim expressions of the guards. And here it is, the final stretch. A straight road, horses racing at full speed. Death, cold, and darkness are behind. Spur the horses. Everyone knows that after sunset the gates will not open. A tradition, revived after so many years. People rush, picking up speed, ignoring those left behind. "The gates!" shouted the one in the lead. They made it. The gates were still open, just a little bit further. Behind us came a frantic, broken voice from the middle of the group. If anyone had turned around, they would have seen the pack of predators driving the group forward. Snowy Dogmans, creatures from the depths of hell. 15 individuals, a large pack of deadly predators, shadows flying after the people. The gates. The cry rang out again, and the realization dawned on the people that they were dragging death with them, and how the people in the fortress would react to it. The gates lowered agonizingly slowly, giving the group a slim chance to make it. And then one of the horses stumbled. Its hoof fell into a hole, breaking with a crunch, letting out a plaintive whinny, throwing its rider, a young pregnant woman. She fell, disappearing into the snow, sliding down a small slope. "Evredeka!" An older man shouted desperately, holding his horse. Time was running out, and he understood they wouldn't make it. Neither the guards nor their companions stopped to help. Everyone raced past, leaving the pair alone with death. The man jumped from his horse, plunging into the snow, awkwardly moving his legs, and ran to his screaming wife. She had twisted her ankle. He scooped up his pregnant wife, dragging her upwards, knowing they would soon die. His half-mad scream echoed through the valley, urging both the survivors and the predators to quicken their pace. He hoisted his beloved onto the horse, kissed her on the lips, and struck the horse's flank, sending her towards the escaping group, while he turned to face death. He died before he could see the horse, at full gallop, crash into the wooden gates as his wife fell to the ground, crying out in pain and fear. From such a distance, he would have thought she was dead, but she wasn't. The gates lifted just enough for her to scramble inside. The horse was left to die. With a heavy thud, the gates came down, sealing the fortress town from the outer winter world for days, perhaps weeks, judging by the blizzard that howled beyond the town's edge. Did you hear how many there were? They say a few dozen. More than 50. And they brought all of this here? The merchants dragged them in. Is the pregnant woman alive at least? All these nerves because of a woman. The horse kept whinnying while those things devoured it. They descended like vultures, covering everything, those creatures. The chaotic murmur in the tavern rolled from corner to corner, rehashing the same topic. Such an impressive arrival of the merchants. The blizzard and snowy Dogmans negatively affected both the newcomers and the town's residents. Now men and women were herded into barracks, where nurses and doctors would examine them for suspicious bites, scratches, and wounds. Anyone could be infected. Meanwhile, the goods were piled up in a common warehouse. Tonight the newcomers would spend under supervision, and tomorrow they could meet with the town's leader to decide what to do next. Even if the blizzard passed, the Dogmans would not go away. Who would pay for their extermination? A delicate topic, no doubt. A girl rose from the table and quietly left the small tavern hall. She climbed the slippery wooden stairs onto the town wall, along which a patrol strolled, bundled in warm winter coats, only slits for their eyes exposed. They held torches, their hands near the crossbow stocks, ready to shoot at any moment. The snowy Dogmans wouldn't climb the wall, but every year they tried. Tonight there were indeed many. The horse's bloody carcass attracted another dozen beasts. By morning, there would be more, and then they would leave. They couldn't stand the sunlight, preferring to hunt at dusk or dawn. Leaning over the wall, she stared down, exposing her face to the cold snow whirlwinds. Dressed inadequately for the weather, just a short black cloak, leather pants with a light scarf wrapped around her neck, and warm, fur-lined boots. Not suitable for such winter, but was she cold? A pink blush on her cheeks, warm breath, and fingers under which the snow melted. "Hey, get off the roof. If you slip, we won't catch you," a young shaggy patrolman yelled, lifting a warm cloth from his face. The girl turned and stared at the guy unblinkingly. He choked on his prepared words, awkwardly shifting from foot to foot. She was beautiful. Young and slender, unlike the town women, hardened by the heavy winter work. She had long red hair reaching her waist, thin eyebrows, large, almost colorless gray eyes with a black rim, sensual lips, and a straight, calm gaze. She smiled at him without saying a word. "You'll freeze, fool," the young man's 40-year-old partner muttered. "Why can't you stay in the house?" "Mara," a resonant voice called from somewhere below. The girl laughed and then ran down the stairs. "Damn, she's one of them," the man exclaimed in amazement, then spat. "You shouldn't be looking at her like that, Joe. She came with those merchants. She might be dangerous." "I don't think so. It's clear what the others are like, but she's different," Joe confidently replied. "Love-struck fool. Wait until she sinks her teeth into your neck. Or will you offer it yourself? I've heard some local fools offered their necks to their leader for trinkets," the man sneered, then looked into the darkness beyond the wall and grimaced. "Sometimes you don't know what's worse, those beasts outside or those we let in the night before last." They felt the blizzard coming, but they didn't leave. Joe reasonably confirmed his partner's words. "Maybe there's a sorcerer among them. I don't know. I don't like them. Sometimes I think they're to blame for everything," the man pondered. "Don't say that. It's dangerous," Joe warned him. "Yeah." The man waved his hand, closing the topic and turning around. "Let's do another round. One more hour of duty and we can go back to the warmth. Mara, you shouldn't walk alone," the man said calmly, extending his hand to the girl. "First, you know I'm perfectly safe," she remarked carelessly, then focused instantly. "There are about 30 of them." "Quite a lot." The man sighed heavily, confirming her words. Bright, almost yellow eyes tirelessly scanned the courtyard and the narrow alley where they stood. The man slung his long, black and white-streaked hair over his shoulder and gripped the girl's delicate hand tighter. "Do you think the blizzard will hold us here for long?" the girl asked. "At least a week. During that time, the snowy Dogmans will multiply," the man confirmed her fears. "The town leader will ask for our help, offer a solid reward and his men to assist. But it will be useless. We're all gonna get killed." "Quite a predicament, isn't it?" Mara smiled. "Time to leave?" "First, we'll demand payment, stock up on provisions and other necessities. The next town is 15 days away by horse. Who knows when we'll reach it?" "Yes." The girl nodded in agreement, accepting the elder's plan. "We need to inform the others. Are you going to see the town leader?" The man nodded, and they parted ways. The crystal-clear morning silence hung in the air like a light twilight haze. The sun rose over the houses, pink from the dawn. The town slept, cradling more than 200 lonely souls. The frost painted cold patterns on the windows, and somewhere in the distance, a rooster's morning crow echoed. The town slept. Every resident was cozily nestled in their homes, in their rooms, wrapped in warm blankets, cuddling to preserve warmth. Sweet dreams, serene and simple. The town was at peace. It was young and strong. Youthful blood ran through its veins, confident in the fortress walls. How foolish this confidence of youth, unarmored by the knowledge of old. And how blind the old-timers of the past era, unaware of what could happen. They were all here, lucky ones, fortunate ones, pampered by fate. Like many other fortress towns, they were simply lucky to build walls around the former prison of the past world in time. This fortress was built on the fortress of the previous era. It once prevented escape. Now it protected those inside from what lay beyond its walls. The morning patrol silently wandered the streets. They wrapped themselves in their coats, slightly squinting their eyes, enjoying the crisp dawn silence, not noticing how the creaking snow underfoot gradually turned crimson. Only with eyes wide open did the men realize they were standing before the remains of a person, still steaming in the cold. The town slept, savoring its last quiet morning. "What do you think it was?" Third asked Mara. "Third, what do you think?" The girl concentrated, throwing a set of small knives at a crookedly placed wooden post. "Could one of those creatures have gotten into the town?" "Yeah, hard to sense with them crowding around the walls." The second girl nodded, pulling the knives from the post and tossing them back. "Maybe one of those beasts did slip into the town. But where there's one, there are others. We need to get out of here while we can. If even one creature is here, the whole town will soon be infected. And then panic and paranoia. We better not stay here," Mara mused. "Second." A commanding voice from behind made the girl turn around. The man nodded his head, signaling her to follow him. "So, what is it?" she asked, unable to bear the silence after a moment. "We're taking the job," the man confirmed the girl's fears in an expressionless voice. "We have no other choice. They won't let us leave the town, right?" She had considered this option. "They think one of us did it, don't they?" "Yes, you are always right, Mara. Fourth inspected the crime scene today. It wasn't a snowy Dogman. Looks like the work of a beast. Maybe a werewolf? I don't know. We'll figure it out. They pay well, plus the merchant will give us a share of the deceased's portion if we help deal with the snowy Dogmans." "Al," the girl reproachfully said, freezing in place. "We're not merchant guards. We're mercenaries. So what the hell? If we take this case, we'll all die. And there are others waiting for us in the next town." "That's why you're second," the first laughed. "And I'm the first. We'll kill the beast, claim the most valuable share of the merchants, and leave. That's more like a plan. But why so? Why not leave now? They suspect us, so they won't just let us go. Let them think we're honest rather than striving to make us dead, got it? The girl reluctantly nodded. At sunset, another murder occurred, even more brutal than the previous one. The first victim was a doctor, one of those who examined the newcomers. The second was one of the merchants. He was torn apart when he stepped outside to relieve himself and get some fresh air after celebrating their survival. He was ripped in half, his head torn off and thrown into the stable. The beast was insane but possessed intelligence, ruling out true werewolves and ordinary animals. Fourth compiled lists of the newcomers. He interrogated the patrols, examined the tracks with third, and concluded that the one doing this was from the merchant group. There were only 20 people left in the group, including the guards. 4 merchant families and a pregnant woman who decided to stay in the town, knowing she had nowhere else to go. Here she could hope to get a job and a place to live. The remnants of her husband's share would be enough to live on for a while, and maybe she would find a new husband, start a household, and occasionally remember her savior. The merchants were carrying wool, fabrics, and shoes from the north. A good steady income if not for the dangers along the way. 7 hired guards, and each merchant with their eldest sons wielded swords and crossbows, as did the women who dared to travel with their husbands. Evrideka was not the wife of the dead merchant at the start of the journey. She had run away with him from her family, who wanted to marry her off not for love. She became pregnant by another man, and then fled with a visiting merchant. He couldn't resist the beauty of the young girl and didn't pay attention to her belly. He took her with him, and they married along the way. The unfortunate fate of Evrideka, losing loved ones one after another. The first family consisted of 4 people. The head of the family, Paul Rothert, his wife Kelly, their eldest son Ben, and the youngest, Clementine, a beautiful 16-year-old daughter. This was a strong, united family. Paul was the caravan leader, the eldest, receiving a percentage of the shares from other members. It was through him that all contacts with suppliers went. A confident and strong man, he was leading the caravan for the last time, deciding to send his deputy next time. He planned to settle in the southern town they were heading to and run things from there. His children had grown up. It was time for his son to take over and his daughter to get married. A candidate had been chosen long ago. It was the son of Paul's close friend, another merchant from the group. This merchant was named Derek Hellmark, and his son was Mel. Both looked frightening, swarthy with a hint of Eastern blood. Both conducted their business not entirely honestly, but Paul was satisfied with Mel's business acumen, convinced that he was the best match for his daughter. The Hellmarks were newcomers, having appeared in Paul's hometown 7 years ago. Derek's wife had died before he joined Paul's caravan. Once he had joined Paul as a guard, then they became friends, and when Derek saved enough money to buy wool, he became a caravan member. They were cunning, resourceful father and son, confidently moving towards their goal. Their rivals for the caravan leader's favor were the Lisoy family, Carl and Eugenia with their son August. Carl had been in the same group of survivors with Paul in the early years after the end of the world. He believed that this was enough to not pay a percentage for Paul's referrals, and he was genuinely surprised that his old friend did not treat him any differently from the others. Over the years, this resentment grew, and now Carl planned to intercept Paul's contacts, depriving him of leadership to become the head of the caravan himself. His shrewish wife, who always thought the grass was greener on the other side, spurred him on. But their son didn't care. The boy was obsessed with travel. He sought to break away from the usual route, leave his family, and embark on a long journey. He was interested in the mysterious and dangerous York, where, according to rumors, real magic was happening. The last surviving merchant family was the Frasers. Father Gustav and two sons, Mark and Lloyd. The youngest son, Theo, had died on the way, as had two guards and a lone merchant who had saved his wife's life. This family was immersed in grim thoughts about their future. The father had already decided that this would be their last journey. As soon as they sold their goods, they would immediately settle behind thick, strong walls under the reliable protection of the town leader. They would find another craft and never travel again. During this journey, Gustav's wife had died. She didn't wake up one morning, and a smile of enjoyment was frozen on her lips, which didn't match her deadly pallor. The death of his wife, and then his youngest, most beloved son, greatly weakened Gustav. He was ready to stop, even though the merchant profession brought good money. The man no longer wanted to lose his loved ones for extra earnings. It no longer appealed to him. The second victim of the beast was a lone merchant, Kelvin Hloon, a close friend of Chris, Everdeka's deceased husband. They had started their business together, so it was doubly sad that both didn't make it to the southern town. According to Paul, Kelvin was a good guy, deeply affected by his friend's death. They said he drank a lot and had a sharp tongue, but otherwise, he was a loyal fellow. And finally, the guards, hired in different towns along the caravan's route, all by recommendations from Paul's acquaintances and friends. Among them were a tracker, a hunter, and 5 simple guys with strong muscles, not knowing where to apply their skills. They traveled with caravans, dreaming of opening a hotel, tavern, or something like that with the money they earned. Standard dreams for troubled souls. August wanted to leave with 2 guards after the journey, who planned to head towards York, where they were promised a good job. Fourth of Mara's group carefully studied the merchant caravan, trying to understand what was wrong. On the one hand, you can't immediately accuse the caravan members of murder. Coincidences sometimes happen, but Fourth instinctively felt that the beast was somehow connected to the main core of the caravan. He suspected everyone, analyzing their behavior and connections within the group. He also questioned the doctors who examined the merchants, hoping to find some clue. So far, everything was fruitless. An ordinary caravan of brave souls, making good money in these tough times. "How are you?" Mara, sitting on the bed, was braiding her hair into 2 braids. Staring straight ahead, she thoughtfully bit her lower lip, sifting through her memories. She was mentally arranging her next moves, trying to establish the correct order of actions. There was a lot of work ahead. "I'm fine. I'll get dressed and go on duty. I think I'll get lucky." "Why are you so sure about that?" Running his hand along the girl's bare back, the man asked with a smirk. "Because I'm always lucky." Second turned and glanced sideways at the man in her bed. "We'll manage, Al. No one doubts that." The quiet, snowy night was torn apart by a woman's scream. The girl took a cautious breath, rolled her shoulders, and then rushed towards the source of the scream. Fourth was heading to the spot from the other direction. They emerged simultaneously onto a small, round square with a drinking fountain in the center. They were too late. Second snorted in disappointment and approached the fountain. Filled with blood and entrails, in the light of the incomplete moon, black and gurgling, it frightened a trembling girl sitting in the snow. "Did you see who did this?" Fourth asked, kneeling next to her. "Hey? Can you hear me?" "Don't," Mara warned. Hypnosis is forbidden in cities, remember? It was a monster. Finally, the young girl spoke, staring mesmerized at the fountain reflecting a bloody green hue. With bright purple eyes, white shiny fur, it looked right at me, and then disappeared with what was left of Lloyd. "Come on, get up." Mara pushed Forth aside, understanding that his glowing vampire eyes would scare the girl, and she might fall silent out of fear. Second lifted the frightened girl to her feet, shrugged off her coat, and threw it over the girl's fur coat, which was covered in cold sweat from the adrenaline rush. "She needs to be taken to warmth," Mara said, holding the girl to her chest, looking at Forth. "You need to report to the human patrols about what happened here. I remember there's a small tavern nearby. Hopefully the owners are still awake." "I agree. That's what we'll do." "Hey girl, what's your name? Are you from the newcomers? Who are your parents?" "I'm Clementine. My father is the head of the caravan." The girl sniffed and then looked straight at him. "You're a vampire, right?" The man smiled at the girl's question. He remembered a time when such questions would have been considered a sign of madness. Back then, people didn't believe in the supernatural, considering vampires and other creatures a myth. Now, after the end of the world, supernatural beings had become a reality. No one would be surprised by a mercenary squad consisting of vampires or werewolves. Such squads were even more trusted, as they possessed significant physical and mental strength, capable of taking down snowy dogmans with their bare hands, unlike humans. Oh, traces of well-justified prejudices still lingered in the air, causing people to avoid supernaturals, suspecting that such proximity brought no good. However, each city had its own laws. In some, supernatural beings ruled, others belonged to humans. Each fortress city decided independently how to live, and often these decisions determined their survival. "Yes, Clementine, I'm a vampire." He nodded with a smile. "Cool." The girl returned the vampire's smile. "I hope you'll kill the beast that did this to Lloyd. Be sure of it." Mara nodded, leading the girl away from the square. "Clementine, tell me what happened," Second asked when they found themselves in the warm, common room of the tavern. The owners had already gone to bed, but once they heard what happened, they let the girls in, prepared a snack, and hot herbal tea for Clementine. "Just Tina," the girl said, grimacing as she turned red from the tea. "Clementine is a stupid name. It doesn't suit me at all." "All right, Tina. What happened in the square?" "Our families were settled in different places," the girl started, looking at the fire in the fireplace. "Lloyd and I have been friends for a long time and agreed to meet after dinner. It's not that late. Back where we're from, all the fun starts at this time. But here the city felt dead. We wanted to take a walk to the wall, see what was happening on the other side, and then go home. But there was such a blizzard outside. I couldn't see anything. I was feeling my way around. Lucky we were settled nearby, or I would have gotten lost for sure. I stepped away for a moment." The girl hesitated, embarrassed to say she went to the bathroom. "When I came back, you know, blood is well visible on white snow even at night. The moon allowed me to see through the snow cover, and I saw it. The beast. It stood on the edge of the fountain and was pulling Lloyd's guts out with its teeth. He was still alive. The memory stunned the girl. She clenched and unclenched her fists, but there was no expected hysterics. And then that creature saw me." "What did it do?" "Nothing." The girl snapped angrily. "It looked at me, chewing pieces of my friend, and then darted off into the darkness. Only a purple flash flickered and it was gone." "Did you remember its appearance? Can you tell its gender?" "No idea. I told you. It was dark." She crossed her arms over her chest. That creature was huge with white fur and glowing purple eyes. I think it had claws on its hands and feet, but I'm not sure. I don't remember anything else. You did well. Leaning over the table and touching the girl's hand, Mara said, Tina, you're a strong girl, rest assured. We'll catch this beast. You know, it seemed to me that it recognized me, the girl said thoughtfully. Its gaze became meaningful, as if it knew me. Are you sure? Yes, I felt it. The girl nodded. My parents laugh at me, but sometimes I get these feelings. I don't know how to explain. It's like something becomes suddenly clear, even if it lacks logic. And sometimes phrases come to my mind. I don't know how to explain, but these phrases, they're not my thoughts, as if something from outside comes. And what comes always comes true. You have clear vision, touching the girl's forehead, Second said meaningfully. A good gift. Do you think I'm special? Tina asked shyly. We're all special because we live in a special time. But you have a very valuable gift. Cherish it. Okay, the girl nodded, then unexpectedly yawned loudly. Embarrassed, she leaned back, and at that moment the entrance doors opened and Clementine's parents appeared on the threshold. Oh my God, daughter, the woman cried, hugging the girl who jumped to her feet. Both were hugged by the father, and the older brother stood nearby. Their faces were stern, marked by grief, their light green eyes darkened with sorrow. Mom, you know, it killed Lloyd, Tina said helplessly, losing all her composure. Leaving the tavern, Mara took a deep breath and looked at the sky. How strange. What are you talking about? Fourth, standing nearby, asked, Gab, don't you see anything unusual in the sky? No, the moon, stars. What's the matter? Then where's the blizzard coming from? Why are there no clouds in the sky? Turning to her partner, the girl exclaimed, Doesn't that seem strange to you? The blizzard dissipates. It only rages. When it kills, the rest of the time staying outside the fortress, not allowing anyone to get out, Second continued for him. We need to inform first. Do you think he knows what we're dealing with? Now we know what the beast looks like. We know what it does. All that's left is to understand the reasons, and we'll track it down. I've never heard of such creatures, First shook his head. Maybe a new species, like those snowy Dogmans. This is all very bad, Third noted during the general meeting. Settling in the guest room of First at dawn, everyone reported what they saw or heard the previous night. The discussion of the events hit a dead end, as they could not understand what kind of beast was killing people. Dawn was clear. Pink and blue stripes dusted with white framed the rising sun. There were no more victims today. The beast killed Lloyd and then left, leaving the boy's disemboweled body near the barracks where the merchants slept last night. By the tracks, they determined that the beast transformed into a human, complicating their search. Previously, the mercenaries thought that the beast, although connected to the caravan, was a separate species, something like a Rakshasa or Luguru. But after studying how the beast killed and finding tracks of transformation into a human, the mercenaries assumed it was someone from the caravan. And the worst part was that this person likely didn't know what they were doing. Since they couldn't even guess what kind of creature they were dealing with, they couldn't predict the future developments either. We need to interrogate the merchants, especially the guards, Mara said, thoughtfully twirling her loosened braid. Tina has the gift of clear vision. She said the beast recognized her, which means it definitely belongs to the caravan. We'll interrogate each one, find inconsistencies in their words. That's how we'll catch the killer. Good plan, First nodded. Let's proceed with it. Meanwhile, I'll talk to the town leader just in case. Maybe something similar has happened in the city before. We might be looking in the wrong direction." "Do you think one of us did this?" Paul exclaimed, disbelief and a hint of anger in his voice. Sitting at the round table, the man looked almost angrily at Mara, sensing trouble. After everything they had been through, the caravan members reacted very negatively to the mercenaries' words. They wanted to stick together now, but the girl's mere suggestion disrupted the caravan's unity. Now everyone would suspect each other, and Paul foresaw that this wouldn't lead to anything good. What if it's one of you killing people? And now you're trying to blame us just because we're convenient scapegoats. The man fumed, seeking support from the two merchants sitting next to him, Derek and Carl. Gustav sat gloomily a bit farther away, not reacting to Paul's outrage. We've known each other for years. Surely we would have noticed if one of us was a monster. And our journey didn't start yesterday. If there was a monster among us, it would have killed before. Carl, a corpulent man, added reasonably, looking at the young girl with dislike. He didn't like having to justify himself to a stranger. He didn't know who she was, and it made him very nervous, constantly fiddling with a homemade cigarette. "You forgot about Theo." The merchant Gustav spoke quietly. Without raising his eyes, he looked at his hands resting on the lace tablecloth. "You forgot about Mary, my wife. Forgot about the guards who vanished into the darkness. And forgot about Chris, who died for his young wife. We've lost many on our way. Who says it was all by chance?" The room fell silent. The merchants had plenty to say, but they respected their comrade's grief and didn't risk arguing. "If you want to interrogate us, then do it," Gustav concluded, looking at Mara with eyes grayed from sorrow. And no one in the room dared to argue with the young man turned old by grief. "Did you know the Hellmarks are incubi?" Mara asked third. The conversation took place a few hours after continuous interrogations, during which the mercenaries re-questioned the guards, patrols, tavern owners, and doctors and nurses. They didn't exactly hide their nature from us. They just asked us to keep it a secret. Third nodded. "So that's who killed Gustav's wife," Mara said thoughtfully. The biting wind whistled through the icy tower's cracks. There was no one there besides second and third. Only a fire burning steadily in the center of the tower, serving as a beacon for travelers. The girls were old friends. They often went on missions together, trusting each other with their lives. It was remarkable considering how they met. 2 years ago, Mara had been a lice-ridden girl in a torn blue dress stained with blood and dirt. Her hair was gray from dust, her eyes wide with fear, and her heart pounded wildly when she stumbled upon Hal, Gab, and Kat. The vampires couldn't resist attacking the girl, believing she was just a human. They were in for a rude awakening when the little girl managed to give them a fierce fight, literally tearing off Kat's head. That's when Al stepped in, halting the unfolding carnage. He didn't ask the girl her name or what had happened to her. Throughout their acquaintance, he never once inquired who she was. The name Mara came out of nowhere and stuck to the girl, along with her exact place in Al's room. Second. She was smart, cunning, and incredibly strong when she turned into the White Death similar to snowy Dogmans. This combination, along with the vulnerability of her human form, made her a deadly assassin, able to infiltrate any guarded object unnoticed. Everyone was sure she was just human. Perfect mimicry gave her a resemblance to the creature killing in this town. Mara became part of Al's group. She was a strong girl who knew her worth. She never spoke of her past. and she remained silent on any questions, so it seemed she was hiding from someone, which was common in the tumultuous times they lived in. Just weeks after joining Al's team, she dyed her white hair red, completely changing her unusual pale appearance. "Let Al decide," Third concluded after a minute of thought. "For now, we're left in the dark. No one saw or heard anything. It's a curse." "We're not the fools they are," Hal countered. "It looks like they decided to deal with the creature themselves. That's why they're saying nothing. Sooner or later the town leader will allow hypnosis," Mara nodded. "So it's pointless and dangerous. A riot might break out." A gust of wind carried the girl's last words down to the snow-covered town. The wind grew stronger, throwing tiny icy particles that painfully pricked the skin. "A blizzard," Second whispered. "Finally, we'll find this beast," Hal shouted, then easily leapt from the narrow observation window. Mara could follow her friend's path but preferred the stairs, wanting to keep her abilities a secret from the locals for as long as possible. Once outside, she shielded her eyes from the wind, listening to its bright twilight melody of fear. Rumors spread quickly. Now everyone knew that with the blizzard, it came. The evening street was empty. Windows were shut, and the quiet hammering of nails could be heard. People were boarding up their doors to keep the monster out. Mara easily transformed, calling forth her second self, and dashed towards the foreign heartbeat. This was a different, wilder monster than the one stalking new victims on the streets. The heartbeat stopped, only to resume with new force. The beast found its prey. Second sped up, dissolving into the darkness. Third followed, also hearing the heartbeat. Fourth cut off the path from the other side of the town, and it seemed the beast would soon be surrounded, and then killed. Mara stumbled, falling to her knees, hissing with impotent rage. The foreign heartbeat vanished. The beast disappeared from her radar. Rising to her feet and assuming her human form, she ran forward. Soon, Third slid across the ice to join her. This time, the scene of tragedy was a wide street near the stone wall where snowy Dogmans were raging. Over the past day, their number had reached 40, despite the heavy bombardment from above. The situation was becoming critical. Soon it would overshadow what was happening within the town. In the meantime, a horrific scene met their eyes. This time the victims were the former patrol and the young pregnant woman Evredika. The wild wind calmed, revealing the blood-stained walls, steam swirling over the spilled entrails of Joe's senior partner. "They're alive," Hal whispered, bending over Joe and Evredika. "They're incredibly lucky." Fourth, seemingly hearing Hal's words, spun around and rushed towards the medical center. The guy had it worse than Evredika. His face was slashed as if by a razor. Deep cuts ran across his chest, oozing thick blood. The worst wound was on his stomach, resembling a powerful blow that tore the skin and subcutaneous fat along with the muscles. Third quickly ripped the clothes from the guy's body with her claws, exposing the bare stomach. "He might not survive until the doctors arrive," she said, biting her lower lip. "Give him your blood," Mara whispered. "Just enough to keep him alive, but still look wounded. We're not allowed to do that," the girl protested. "I think he'd prefer to get blood and live than die because of this city's laws. We need him alive. He's a witness." Mara argued quietly but fervently, swaying her friend to her side. "All right." The girl nodded tensely, accepting the senior's command. Then she quickly slashed her exposed arm and held it over the boy's body. A thin stream of blood flowed into the wound, after which Hal pulled her arm back and pressed it to her lips, waiting for the cut to heal. They made it in time. Meanwhile, the pregnant girl regained consciousness. What happened? She muttered quietly and incoherently. "Where am I? How are you?" Mara asked, gently touching her shoulder. "Don't touch me." The girl's face twisted into a snarl. She almost lunged at Mara, but then a gray shadow crossed her face, and she closed her eyes. "Sorry. What's happening?" "Post-traumatic syndrome," the arriving doctor concluded. "I understand that Breda can no longer be helped. I'm afraid only these two need assistance." Mara nodded, stepping back for the doctor. "Remarkable luck," he exclaimed, bending over Joe. "This beast barely wounded him. If the stab to the stomach had been deeper, he would have died from blood loss. Now we need to get him to the operating room immediately, or we risk blood poisoning. Get him on the stretcher, quickly." "I don't think so," Hal whispered, smiling at Mara. "Vampire blood is a powerful thing, ensuring Joe wouldn't die from infection." The doctor seemed to suspect something, but chose to remain silent. After all, the guy would survive. Everdecca had sustained only minor injuries, just a few scratches on her face and some tears in her white fur coat. She looked older, burdened by recent sorrows. Fleeing her family, pregnancy, the death of her young husband, and now the monster's attacks. The girl was nearly broken under the weight of her troubles. Mara wasn't sure how to approach her, given her initial reaction. In the waiting rooms, Mara waited for a nurse who told her that Everdecca should not be disturbed for the time being. They had given her herbal sedatives to help her sleep. Confidentially, the nurse mentioned that the girl might not have long to go before labor, fearing premature birth. Giving birth in such dangerous times. What a nightmare, she whispered as she left. Mara encountered the entire Rothert family outside the medical center. "Why are you out at this hour?" Mara scolded. "What if that creature had attacked you?" "How's Dina?" Tina asked anxiously. Behind her stood a grim father and a frightened mother. Her brother stood off to the side, seemingly detached from everything. A difficult age in a difficult time. "She's fine, she's sleeping." They asked not to wake her, so visiting won't be possible until morning. "I'll escort you home to ensure your safety." "And you're our guarantee of safety?" Ben sneered. He had a surprisingly shrill voice, which Mara attributed to his teenage years. "He'll develop confidence and strength in time, just wait," she thought. But she didn't like the tone in which Ben asked his question. Staring at the boy with an unwavering gaze and waiting for his father's nervous reaction, he put his hand on her shoulder. She led the visibly shaken family to their lodging. "Do you already know who is doing this?" Tina's mother asked cautiously. "I hope either Everdecca or the patrol boy will shed some light on the situation by tomorrow morning," Mara replied, frowning slightly. "The creature is cunning. We can't figure out how it vanishes. As soon as we sense it, the beast disappears, leaving dead bodies behind." "Is Everdecca really okay?" Tina asked again. "Were you close?" "Yes. She's good, though troubled." "Clementine," Paul warned, embarrassed by his daughter's frankness. "You don't understand. She just has bad luck with men," the girl stubbornly concluded. "Rest assured, both she and the baby are fine," Mara assured her, touching her shoulder. "If anything changes, call us right away, okay?" she said as they reached the door of their house. "We can talk to Everdecca tomorrow, but for now, we all need rest." "You're so young," Paul said as the family entered the house. "You're not a vampire, are you? Why are you with them?" "This team pays well," Mara replied with a crooked smile, indifferent. "Who are you?" "Why do you do this?" the man persisted. "You're young, beautiful, with wide hips. It would be easy for you to find a good man, get married, have children, start a family, a household, your own home. Why work as a mercenary? Because my life will always be on the edge of a knife. Mara's eyes glowed coldly in the darkness, causing Paul to yelp in fright and quickly retreat into the house. You shouldn't have done that. Al's calm voice sounded behind her. I didn't like what he was saying. Mara replied emotionlessly, turning around. We need to talk to the town leader. As I understand it, a curfew has been imposed, yet people still go out at night, unafraid of either orders or the predator. That's their right, he said, inviting her for a walk. We'll find the beast. If worse comes to worst, we'll declare all newcomers infected and kill them. The locals will get the merchants' furs and goods. We'll get money and safe passage. These people won't go for that. Otherwise, we'd all be dead already. Mara shook her head in disagreement. What a starless night. Quiet and empty in the sleeping town. For humans, colors fade at night, turning the palette to black and white, occasionally lit by fire or lanterns. Mara saw differently. Her world was still dark, but its colors were rich, vibrant, much more vivid than during the day. This diversity made her night vision as clear as daylight. First's face showed concern. The team had lingered in the town, which would negatively impact their plans. They would wait for them, but they might lose valuable time. For the leader, this was unforgivable. That's why he hurried them, knowing the subordinates were doing all they could. They couldn't leave the town on foot. Now, with so many snowy Dogmans, they needed local warriors. Their old-world weapons and experience fighting snowy Dogmans from the fortress walls. Otherwise, they'd be stuck here. None of the team wanted to turn into a snowy Dogman, so they followed the established rules. Mara, we have no more than 2 days left, Al said, stopping. If we don't leave the town by then, go. You can escape and reach the next town unlike us. They won't listen to me, despite being your second. She shook her head in disagreement. It's not about whether they'll listen or not. You'll take our people and bring reinforcements back here. And our plans? She grimaced in frustration, crossing her arms over her chest. They'll wait. We have all eternity ahead of us, dear, Al said, running his hand through her red hair. We'll see. She dodged his embrace, returning his smile. First, we need to catch the beast. Dawn found the girls in the tavern. Mara was having breakfast with local flatbread while Third was tending to a boy. Hunting was forbidden in cities, but if everything was done voluntarily without hypnosis, then for a fee to the city treasury, a vampire could feed. Usually, vampire women chose young, inexperienced boys who had no sexual experience. For sex with a charming girl, they were willing to do anything. And they didn't care if their partner was over 100 years old. Mara was carving a beautiful pattern on the wooden table with a knife, ignoring the disapproving coughs of the local cook. The girl, in this simple activity, was turning over in her mind the possibilities of who could be the beast. Simultaneously, she made small notes in her old, worn notebook, washing down the morning bitterness with a cup of hot spiced tea with honey. A good, surprisingly wealthy town. It's a rarity in these latitudes, though it's located on the main route between Billings and Casper. Maybe that's the whole point. A melodic laugh came from the stairs to the second floor. Hal had convinced the boy, and now they were going upstairs. Apparently, she had already paid the establishment's owner. Scratching behind her ear, Mara stretched with pleasure. She loved early mornings. Very quiet, very peaceful. All the hustle and bustle would come later. Morning is the most sincere time of the day. No one can lie at 6 o'clock. The only thing is that few people get up at this time voluntarily. Finishing her flatbread, she paid the cook and stepped out into the fresh winter air. Tilting her head back and squinting slightly, she headed towards the fortress wall. She had a walk around the town ahead to determine the best escape routes. She was also concerned about the number of snowy Dogmans. She cursed the unlucky caravan of merchants under her breath 3 times. Although they couldn't be called that unlucky, as with bad luck came incredible luck. If there wasn't a mercenary team in the town leader, despite all his mercy, would have thrown these folks off the city walls without a second thought, probably not even sparing the girls and the pregnant woman. And he would have been right. In such times, mercy is more dangerous than evil. No one to blame if everyone dies. Days blending into each other were exhausting in their monotony. Perhaps that's why Mara disliked winter, preferring the vibrant colors of summer. Cold December, covered in ice and sharp snow, irritated her with its sharp gusts of wind raging in open spaces, the damp air making it hard to breathe, and the short daylight hours, forcing everything to be done in a rush. "Evredeka, how are you feeling?" Third asked the obvious question. Paul was present in the room as an observer. Dina still belonged to his caravan, so the man insisted on being at the interrogation. Jo hadn't regained consciousness yet, much to Hal's dismay. She kept lamenting that she should have given him more blood. But Mara was pleased. If he recovered too quickly, it could raise unnecessary questions. "I'm tired." The girl, wrapped in a warm woolen blanket, looked shyly at Forth, apparently embarrassed by her large belly protruding from under the blanket. "My head is constantly spinning." "That's not surprising, considering what you've been through." Third tried to comfort her, not attempting to touch her, remembering what happened last time. No, I was told what happened," she mumbled vaguely. "I know why I'm here, but... sorry. I don't remember anything at all." "Displacement," the doctor standing behind us at the ward door whispered. "Such stress. The body couldn't handle it. It's best not to try to remember." "What is the last thing you do remember?" Mara joined the conversation. "Why were you near the city wall?" "I don't remember." The girl was ready to cry from helplessness. "I don't remember anything at all. I left the room to get a glass of water. I was very thirsty. I went out, and then everything is blurry. This I remember clearly. But it seems I talked to someone after that. I think I went outside, but I'm not sure. The doctor said I was dressed for the outdoors, so I really must have gone out. But why? I don't remember. It feels like the explanation is very simple, but I just can't recall it." "It's all right," Hal reassured her, although Mara guessed how frustrated the girl was. "We'll leave you to rest," Forth concluded the interrogation. The girl said nothing, just shyly closed her eyes. Her husband had died a few days ago, and she was already flirting. "Hormones," Mara decided. As they left the ward, they ran into Tina carrying a bundle of cucumbers. "Vitamins," she said with a smile, then froze, dropping the vegetables on the floor. "It won't spare anyone," she said in a quiet, eerie voice, stretching the last word. "What an interesting gift." Al appeared in the corridor. The Hellmarks were standing next to him. It was clear they had been talking quietly before our group from Dina's room disturbed them. "Clementine," her father scolded, catching his falling daughter. "Again. When will this end? An episode? Maybe your daughter needs vitamins?" the doctor suggested smartly, earning a disapproving look from the worried father. Mara exchanged glances with Al and decided to remain silent. People react painfully to the birth of special children. Although, according to statistics, there are more and more of such children each year. What a nightmare awaits us when these babies grow up and start using their talents without proper adult supervision. First ordered the other mercenaries to leave. I wonder what he's discussing with the incubi. Mara and Hal simultaneously thought. The father and daughter went to another ward, the doctor explaining on the way that he knew how to help and where to start. "Do you believe her?" Hal asked, pulling her coat tighter around herself. "She doesn't seem like a liar," Gab said slowly. "But there's something off about her. The woman is too calm for someone who's about to give birth." "Hormones," Mara reasoned. "They're human. Just wait, you'll see rivers of tears soon. We're lucky she was coherent and could tell us something." "Hypnosis," Hal exclaimed. "Could the beast use hypnosis?" That would explain why no one saw it and why everything happened so quickly. They don't have time to defend themselves. Why did Joe and Everdecca survive? If this beast is so powerful, it wouldn't have been hard to kill them too. And why does it always hide as soon as we get close? Something's not right here. The hellmarks suggest it might be a striga, First said, descending the stairs. It's the most logical explanation, covering a lot of ground. Strigas can cast illusions, making them appear as anyone. A few minutes in the guise of a person in clean, warm clothes on the street, and we wouldn't notice them. This beast could be anywhere. They prefer cemeteries, but in the city, people are cremated according to the new customs, so it could be anywhere. The beast needs a quiet, secluded place, preferably cold and dark. Like snowy Dogmans, it prefers to hunt at dawn or dusk. An old striga can control the mind of a weak human. Primitive thinking. And here's a good point. It loves pig entrails. Suggesting we set a trap? Third guessed. Well, and who's going to provide those entrails? An ambush at sunset in the part of the city where the food warehouses were located, next to an old building that used to be a prison. Mara positioned herself on the roof of this building, carefully scanning the surroundings. The sunset painted the sky in yellow, pink, and orange stripes, smoothly transitioning into lilac twilight. It was getting colder, the wind gradually strengthening, promising severe ice by dawn. But for now, everything was quiet. Something told the girl it wasn't going to be simple, but she couldn't predict what would happen next, so she lay quietly, listening to what was happening below. For the first time, the girl thought about her life. She remembered Paul's words. Why do you work as a mercenary? How to answer that question? Mara didn't know. She had no answer, nor another life where she was someone else. All she knew was the large team of mercenaries, gradually gaining strength and power to one day take over the trade routes along the East Coast. Her clan, what she could call family. She didn't want to know otherwise, but sometimes, when alone, she felt a strange emptiness, as if sensing this wasn't it. Not her choice, but a cruel fate leading her down the path where she met First. She liked the life she led. The girl understood that her clan wouldn't just let her go. She saw in it a belonging she constantly thought about. Being part of something, that was her desire. She didn't intend to give it up, but what was wrong then? Third came out to the square, folding her hands. The girl signaled the operation was over. What happened? Mara asked, descending. The whole group gathered around Third. Joe just died. A beam holding the ceiling fell on him. Didn't you hear the noise? I went to check and found out. The roof collapsed. The doctor says the building is new, less than a year old. He claims it was staged. Who would Joe, the patrolman, bother? Fourth grunted irritably. That's a very good question. Did you notice who's being killed? The doctor who worked with the caravan. Then the merchant Kelvin. Then Gustav's son Lloyd. And then the patrolman. I think I'll be right to assume these patrolmen were on the walls when the caravan approached the gates, Mara said, pacing the small square. What are you implying? We need to find out what this doctor was doing the night of the inspection. Then learn more about Kelvin. And about Lloyd. It's not a striga. I think this beast is quite intelligent. There's something wrong with the caravan. The beast doesn't kill randomly, but purposefully. We'll understand its motives and then find it. Time, Mara first reminded her, agreeing with her plan. Everdecca, what can you tell us about Kelvin? He was my husband's friend. Not understanding the point of such a question, the girl shook her head. She had turned very pale after the incident. It seemed she would have to stay in bed until she gave birth. An hour ago, they moved her to a spare wing and posted guards at the entrance just in case. A small, dark-haired girl, so far from home among strangers, just before giving birth. One could only guess how hard it was for her. Her eyes showed how she struggled not to cry, to reveal her grief, to show weakness in front of strangers. Her white hands gripping the blanket, blue veins standing out under the skin, sunken blue eyes, narrow cheekbones. A foreign northern beauty, a stark contrast to the southern fair-haired beauties. Tell us about him. Mara tilted her head, trying to show her friendliness. She didn't dare touch her, seeing how painfully she reacted to strangers. Mara had managed to get permission to talk alone, so Everdecca was a bit more relaxed than when Paul was in the room. He drank a lot. The girl started wearily, wanting only to be left alone. He spoke rudely, made crude jokes. In every town we entered, he looked for women. Did he harass you? When the girl fell silent, Mara asked sharply. No, the girl cried indignantly. How dare you say that? He was my husband's friend. He never once dared to touch me. Sorry I had to ask. Mara apologized. Understand, we need to figure out why he was killed. Isn't the beast killing? Some supernatural creature? The girl asked incredulously. I thought it was a monster. We believe the beast is intelligent. It doesn't kill without reason, Mara said. Dina, can you just guess who it might be? If you look at it that way. Definitely the Hellmarks. Everdecca sneered unexpectedly. They're the ones who give me the chills. An unpleasant family. If my husband were the caravan leader, I'd make him kick them out. And why do you dislike them? The girl asked cautiously. The younger one harassed Tina. Yes, Paul said he wanted to marry his daughter to him, but nothing was officially discussed yet. A drunken fool, I slapped him around back then, and the next day his father came to me, threatened to throw me out of the caravan if I dared to talk. And he looked at me so angrily, it was terrifying. What right did he have to behave like that? All right, I'll keep an eye on them, Mara assured her. Tell me, do you remember the doctor who was the first to die? Do you remember him in quarantine? Did he do anything bad? He was loose-tongued, but otherwise an ordinary doctor. Like all of them. I've seen so many because of... And she nodded at her belly. I think the profession leaves an imprint on the personality. Thanks for your help. Mara tried to put warmth into her voice, earning a grateful look from Everdecca. You're kind, you know, she said. Others only see my belly. They all know I'm pregnant not by my husband. And my husband and I were married for only a few months. Only Tina was kind to me, a young girl. She understood how I felt. Other women in the caravan avoided me. Chris said that as soon as we got to the southern town, he'd quit and get a job in the city. We'd live in a white house with a red roof. The money from selling the goods would be just enough for such a house. He believed in a happy future and loved me very much. And what happened? Because of a stupid horse, he sacrificed himself to save me. And now I'm stuck in this hated, wind-swept town with people who disgust me. You know what they plan to do? They won't leave me a penny. They say, how can I be a wife? Just a few months and that's it. I have no rights to the goods, that's what they say. And they dare consider me part of the caravan. That's why Paul is hovering around. He knows if I tell the town leader, he might rule in my favor. Yes, you can't tell this to a little girl like Tina. Evrideka was utterly worn out by her misfortunes. Words flowed from her, revealing her resentment and accumulated anger. But what could Mara say to her? Nothing. She couldn't interfere in someone else's trouble. It would bring trouble upon herself. She could only sympathize, but Dina needed more than that. What can you tell me about Lloyd? Mara took Tina for a walk. The girl was deeply affected by her friend's death, but she was interested in the mercenaries' company, so she deftly escaped her family's supervision. He was a good guy, she said, biting her lower lip. I was friends with him in August. The three of us dreamed of leaving the caravan, traveling, seeing the world. We wanted to do that, but now everything will be different. Tell me, did Lloyd harm anyone? Did he have enemies? Mara continued, lightly holding the girl's shoulder. Maybe just Mel's. That jerk. She pursed her lips, glancing sideways at Mara. You know, my father wants to marry me off. To that Hellmark. How could he think of that? Did he do something to you? Not knowing how to phrase it, Second asked, cursing everyone and everything for having to have this conversation with a young girl. If he had done anything like that, he'd regret it, the girl declared. No, but he was always picking on August and Lloyd. Once they ganged up and beat the guy, he tattled to his father. As a result, the Hellmark, Lizoy, and Fraser families don't get along very well. And your father? What does he think about it? He says, the boys will figure it out themselves. We shouldn't get involved. The girl mimicked her father's voice. Listen, do you remember the doctor who was the first to die? Did he stand out among the other doctors? Mara quickly changed the subject. They stopped near the inn where Tina's family was staying. During the conversation, they had almost circled the town. Mara didn't dare take the girl too far from her relatives, reasonably fearing their displeasure. He was worried about something. I think it was because of Evrideka's pregnancy. Quarantine and all that, Tina replied after a moment of thought. I think he was worried that a girl at such a stage of pregnancy decided to travel. As I said, Dinah is a good girl, but she's reckless. Sometimes she does foolish things. She said she protected you from Mel's. I could have handled it myself. And she, with her belly, shouldn't have worried so much, the girl said, slightly embarrassed. Okay, I should go. I feel my parents are worried. All right. When you catch that beast, kill it, okay? Don't spare it, it deserves to die, the girl said, turning at the doorstep. Why would we spare it? Mara was surprised. Clementine just shrugged and smiled. Mara, less and less time left, dear, and we're still at a standstill. Al touched the girl's shoulder with his lips, whispering truthful words. You'll have to leave the town, sweetheart. There's no other way. Mara stepped back, turning to face first, running her fingertips along the line of his cheekbones, smiling. There's always a way. We just don't give ourselves a reason to see it. The man hugged her by the waist, pulling her close, covering her face with kisses, and gently laid her on the soft bed. We need to isolate them. I've had enough of these talks. They lead nowhere. Second began the meeting sharply, like a knife cutting through the silence. The foundation of this town is a prison. Now it's mostly abandoned, an old neglected building, only partially used as a warehouse. For us it's the perfect option. We'll gather them in one room and wait for sunset. The beast is not only seeking revenge, but also devours its victims' entrails. So it will get hungry and attack. Then we'll kill it. Any questions or objections? You want to gather them all in one place. What will you tell them? They won't agree to that, Third stated skeptically, crossing her arms and leaning against the table. The inn they were settled in was modest. The mercenaries hadn't planned to stay in the town, and now there was no choice. The small living room above the noisy hall was the only place under the roof where they could discuss their plans without attracting attention. They won't have a choice, Mara retorted firmly. First is negotiating with the town leader. He already knows that the beast kills only caravan members and those who contacted them. The merchants will have no choice but to comply. After all, the leader hired us. Our job is to eliminate the beast and protect the townsfolk. No one said anything about the merchants. They are secondary clients. Our departure from the town doesn't depend on them. As expected, the merchants were vehemently opposed to spending the rest of the day in the former prison dining hall under the watch of vampires. When they realized the purpose of all this, an uproar ensued, which Mara had to quell by repeating everything she had told the mercenaries earlier, only much more sternly. The merchants calmed down when they brought in the pregnant Evredeka on a stretcher. "Oh my God, why her?" Tina exclaimed, running to the sleepy girl. "She's about to give birth any day now. Why put her in such danger?" The girl was carried in by patrolmen, accompanied by a worried nurse. "The leader ordered it," she said apologetically. "He allowed one nurse to stay and monitor the pregnant woman, but you understand." She spread her hands helplessly, indicating she didn't intend to stay. Her own life was dear to her. Mara nodded, dismissing the locals. Fourth was on the second floor where guards used to patrol. Third was at the opposite end of the hall. First was on duty outside, just in case. The mercenaries were confident they could handle the beast, so they weren't particularly worried, unlike the others. The Hellmarks were the first to crack under the pressure. Derek decisively crossed the room and requested a private conversation with Mara. "What is it?" the girl asked irritably, mentally counting down the minutes to the end of the day. Through the barred window, she could see the roofs of houses darkening in the twilight. "You know my son and I aren't monsters. We're incubi, and we don't kill like this," the young man said softly. Mara felt him try to use his powers on her, apparently unaware of who she was. "Then why didn't you act the same way with Evredeka?" she replied sarcastically. "How did you, being an incubus, manage to turn almost the entire caravan against your family, except for Paul? It looks more like a masochistic game than integrating into a human community. Care to explain?" "She's pregnant." Derek sighed, his voice filled with barely concealed disgust. "The incubus gift doesn't affect pregnant women. And Paul's daughter has her own abilities. Her gift of clear sight prevents Mel's from influencing her." "And that's all you can say?" Mara asked politely but sarcastically. "No, I just want to ask, why the hell is my family here? Our problems are our problems, but if this beast..." "Calm down. You'd have been eaten long ago if it wanted, given the caravan's sentiments towards you. Just think about it. No one likes you. But apparently being non-human makes you unappetizing to it, that's it? That's why you decided to detain us with the others," the incubus growled. Rage made his eyes glow. "If you think you can keep us here, you..." Mara was tired of the pointless conversation. She was polite enough not to dismiss the incubus immediately, but after he started showing outright aggression, she couldn't restrain herself. A sharp punch to the stomach made the man double over, and Mara grabbed his crotch with her fist. "Listen here, you little cherub. If you utter another word out of line, I'll smear you thinly across the walls of this place. Got it?" she said coldly and disdainfully. And without waiting for an answer from the whining Derek, She squeezed hard, eliciting a pig-like squeal from him. "Yes, yes, I got it." The incubus squealed, and Mara let go of him, giving him a kick for good measure. Her mood immediately improved. Incubi were strong only with those susceptible to their charms. Otherwise, they were too much like humans. Looking at the helpless man who had been boasting and threatening a moment ago, Second smiled, ready to get back to work. Returning to the hall, she saw the situation hadn't changed. There was little time left before sunset. People were nervous, but no one else tried to speak. Apparently, everyone heard Derek's squeal, and his walk finished the image in their minds, making them shut up and sit quietly. "How is she?" Mara asked Hal quietly, nodding at Dina. "Pregnant," Hal said sarcastically. "She's not in labor yet, but I fear it might happen today or tomorrow. Just a hunch." "And the others?" "Quiet as mice." I advised them to keep an eye on each other. They're sitting, watching. Hal shrugged, showing the futility of the process. "What's wrong?" Mara muttered, crossing her arms over her chest. The last ray of the sun heightened the tension in the hall to the limit. People flinched at the slightest movement. Nervous whispers, gossip, angry glances. Mara thought it would be better if they all died here. The presence of people inflamed with suspicion was unbearable. "No, no, no, not now," came a clear wail, and Mara mentally groaned. Rushing to Evridica, she confirmed her suspicions. Her water had broken. "Are you kidding me?" she hissed without a hint of kindness. "How can you give birth in such a situation?" "Sorry," the girl cried hysterically, clutching her belly. "Hot water, a set of towels, a sharp knife, and a separate room." Paul's wife, Kelly, appeared beside the girl lying on the bed. Pressing her hands to her sides, she glared at Mara. "Quickly, we don't want a young girl giving birth in front of 30 people, do we?" Hel stood next to her, gripping her shoulder. Looking into her friend's eyes, she nodded. There was no choice but to compromise. Frost on the old, cracked glass. Cold and howling wind, drafts mixed with the screams of a woman in labor behind the wall. Mara sat by the window, staring into the thick darkness, breathing slowly and steadily. The girl was waiting, ready to spring into action at any moment, ready to fight the delayed opponent. Midnight was approaching. Some had fallen asleep, unable to withstand the tension. Others listened to what was happening behind the wall. The firelight grotesquely distorted the traitors' faces, outlining the harshness of their gazes and movements. Tina clenched and unclenched her fists, constantly adjusting her slipping shawl, never taking her eyes off the door, shuddering at every scream, at every word from her mother. Push. Occasionally she glanced at Mara with a strange, incomprehensible look. Not cold, but not warm either. The caravan guards were stationed around the perimeter of the room, 2 behind the wall guarding the women. I and the 3rd were in the hall, and the 4th was patrolling the area since Al had gone to report to the city leader. The weight was unbearable, but Mara held on, as did Hel, discussing the situation on the nearby lands with one of the guards. "Can I go to her?" came Tina's quiet, cautious voice. She looked at Mara pleadingly, pressing her hands to her chest. "My heart is uneasy. I can't stay away. Dina is all alone in there, no one close to her." "Your mother will take care of her," Mara replied dryly, nodding towards her sleeping father. "No, I don't think so." The girl shook her head, biting her lower lip. "It will end badly." "Do you think so, or—" "I don't know," she almost whispered, shrinking. "All right, let's go. I'll take you," Mara said more out of boredom. Passing by the Helmerex, she caught a hateful glance from Mel's. The girl smirked, a wide smile spreading across her face. Silly boy. Young incubus, not yet aware of what awaits him. Incubi once lived comfortably, enjoying all the benefits of civilization, while remaining in the light, but hiding their true nature. Women fell at their feet, giving everything they had, including their lives. Now it's different. Now incubi have to adapt, trying not to stand out, but at the same time finding their victims. It will be a long time before real large cities appear, capable of accommodating all supernatural predators. They all face war, old age, hunger, and a bony figure with a crooked smile up to her ears. Oh, how fun life will become if they don't start creating new conditions for the existence of all species now. At first, there was a scream. Helplessness empties, subdues, makes you an indifferent observer, watching aimlessly. No strength to resist, no strength to even scream. Emptiness, everything through the haze of chaotic, sluggish thoughts. And you lose the battle without even starting to fight yourself. As soon as they entered the corridor, a sharp, knife-like woman's scream cut through the air. Along with it, the sound of breaking glass behind them and the rising blizzard wind, lifting their hair with a snowy storm. Mara turned slowly, catching a purple gleam on the edge of her vision. Mara. A distant cry, a sob. She wanted to give up. Everything blurred before her eyes, and the girl leaned against the wall. Mara. A woman's hand swept across her cheeks like fire, clearing her vision. The third grabbed her shoulders and dragged her along. What happened to you? You looked like you were losing consciousness. What else? I'm fine. The woman's face paled. The girl forced a smile, then gritted her teeth, spitting out the words, asking curtly, "What happened?" It was Evridica. She killed the guards, Tina's and Augustus's mothers, then almost killed Tina and you. The beast hid in the building's corridors. That's impossible. She was giving birth. Denial of reality was evident in every movement. Mara seemed lost in her sensations, forgetting herself like someone who had lost their way. This happened rarely. Mara had an inkling of why, but couldn't believe it. So she didn't share her thoughts with Hell. I don't know who she was giving birth to, but it's better not to enter that room now. There's blood everywhere, the girl stated firmly, leading the second to the hall. We better hurry and get everyone out of... New screams made both of them curse through their teeth. Where are the others? Mara shouted, regaining her composure in an instant. I don't know, let's run. Changing shape on the run, awakening all the darkest and wildest within her soul, Mara rejoiced. Everything became easy and simple again. No need to decide or think about anything. There's an enemy and there are friends. If someone stands in the way, they die. The goal will be achieved. Mara loved her second nature. It had a true feline playfulness, unlike the ironic coldness of the girl. The simplicity of judgment, the swift run. It all lured her to dive into the white purity of her supernatural side time and again. The girl struggled to return to her human form, because along with the clarity of mind came the heaviness of the human body. Sometimes, gazing into the black night sky with a huge silver moon in the center, she wondered, what's wrong with her? Maybe she shouldn't have had a second side. Maybe they were meant to be together, one whole. But how did it happen then? Who abused her so that she turned into a freak, destined only to fly occasionally? Mara couldn't stay in her other form for long. She grew tired of the rage and ferocity of the other part of her soul. Fatigue drove her back, and Mara turned human again. The consequences: hunger, drowsiness, the need for sex. She always needed moral and physical release. But all these consequences didn't outweigh the thrill of feeling powerful. And Mara, time and again, transformed. Oh my God! Hel stumbled involuntarily, pressing her hands to her mouth. The sight was worth a vampire's astonishment. The first thing that caught the eye was Augustus, sitting and rocking back and forth in the middle of the room. Next to him lay the body of his father, Carl, his face slashed, a gaping, bloody wound in his neck still oozing blood. A little further away, as if embracing, lay the Helmerex. Derry was right. They should have left. They were pierced through, apparently killed with a single blow. In the corner, clutching a sword and leaning against an iron pillar on the second floor, sat Gustav. He stared straight ahead like a corpse, but was still alive. His left hand covered his belly, and a keen observer would notice. His stomach was slit open like a fish's. You could see a corpse lying on its stomach nearby. It looked like Gustav's last son, but the head was missing. It was impossible to say for sure. The bodies of the guards lay scattered around the hall. They had defended themselves but were too slow to save themselves. And then there were none. "How could we let this happen?" Hel muttered. "Where are Ben and Paul?" Mara asked, surveying the hall. "They're not here, and neither is Tina." Tina stayed in the corridor. Hel quickly skirted around Mara and stepped into the corridor. No, you can't go in there," her voice echoed. "Where's my dad? Father?" The scream echoed Augustus's faint wail. The boy seemed mad. Mara decided to try talking to Gustav. "Are you alive? Can you speak?" she cautiously asked, sitting beside him. Gustav looked terrible. His face was ashen, his gaze empty, and his fingers clutched the sword so tightly they were white. "Gustav, we can heal you. Do you want that?" she continued, sensing the third behind her. "You can avenge." She decided to approach from another angle, hoping at least revenge would bring him back to life. It worked. "Evridika," he croaked. "She killed all my boys. Why? What did I do to her to deserve this? You advised my father to abandon her. It was your idea to strip her of her inheritance," came a dry voice from behind. Tina stood next to Mara. "It's revenge for deciding to leave a pregnant woman. She didn't belong to the caravan, but she was loved by your friend Chris. And this is how you chose to treat the woman he sacrificed his life for? To divide his goods among yourselves and leave her here? You knew the city leader refused to take her in. If she had money and furs, wool, he might have reconsidered. But as it was, you condemned her to death. So she condemned you to death. Your children, Gustav, laughed behind her back, called her camel's burp, without even knowing what it meant. That's why she killed everyone but Theo. Your first son was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He saw Dina's first transformation, and she killed him for it. Curiosity killed the cat. Wait a little longer, and she will kill all of you." The girl screamed, her eyes rolling back, and she fell, touching the cold, blood-soaked floor, letting out a nervous giggle. The girl turned her palms over and silently looked at her bloody hands, then raised her eyes to the mercenaries. Turning around, Mara confirmed Gustav's death. The truth hurts. "Well, that's a surprise," Mara drawled with sarcasm. "Let's go. We were hired to kill the beast, not to wallow in tears in the company of children." "Wait, my family, where are they?" Tina asked, suddenly frantic. "Can't you see?" the third responded with irony, surprised at the young girl's resilience. Pug-nosed with a wheat-colored braid and light green eyes, she was all hunched over with pain. Until this night, the girl hadn't truly understood what death was. She didn't want to see or hear others suffering. Now everything was different. Death had knocked on her door, and judging by the tension in her every movement, she knew both her father and brother were dead. She was completely alone. I must find them, she stubbornly declared, seeing the understanding in Mara and Hel's eyes. No, Mara hissed. You will stay here with the boy, got it? A burden you're not needed. The girl recoiled as if slapped, but a look at Mara stopped any objections and she nodded, then hunched over, walked through the hall to Augustus. The boy was inconsolable, but he did not reject his friend's embrace. His whimpering drove Mara and Hel out of the room. Where are the others? The situation made Mara want to howl, but she felt a nervous excitement, almost dancing in place, listening and sniffing. I don't know. It seems something is wrong in the city. The third frowned. It doesn't concern us. Our task is to kill Evridica. Then let's find her, Mara laughed. Drive her to me! Mara ran through the storm and blizzard, cutting through the icy air, ready to take over the main fight from the exhausted third. They found Evridica quickly. The beast wasn't hiding. She was devouring the bodies of Paul and Ben in the yard, where prisoners once walked. Settled in a nook, she pulled their entrails from their bellies and almost purred with pleasure when they found her. The monster was pregnant. Blood flowed between her legs along with a sticky brown liquid. The monster whined quietly at intervals. It was sick from the food but couldn't stop. A white skeletal body, withered muscles, a deformed face. Only long black hair remained of the sweet girl Evridica. She was a monster with glowing violet eyes like a vampire, sharp rows of fangs dripping shiny blood-soaked saliva. Her fingers bent backward, the middle one curled and extended forward, ending in a sharp claw that left marks even on stone. How did we not notice her? The third whispered. Because it's a demon, Mara replied quietly. Rather, a demon possessed the girl. She was carrying a demonic offspring. That's what happened. And then the beast noticed them and let out an angry, strange whistling, turning into a snake's hiss, like a bird's flute breaking off in a snake's stomach. And at that moment, the blizzard hit the girls from all sides. Drive it to me, Mara shouted. The third, obeying the elder's command, ran towards her, and the monster chased her. The speed was frantic, almost identical to Mara's. But the beast was tired, worn out from endless running, now not so quick. The first seconds of the fight showed that Hel's gift did not affect the beast. The same could be said about the girl's claws. She just couldn't reach her. Throwing knives wounded the beast, but it regenerated quickly and almost didn't feel pain enough to be useful. So they had to dodge. The beast quickly realized it needed to avoid Mara, whose blows were much more deadly than the vampire's. Besides, any contact with the girl's blood caused burns and pain, then weakness. The fight was ending, and Mara was preparing to deliver the final blow, hoping the third would be quick and not get in the way. "Do it!" she shouted, jumping and flying over the girl sprawled on the ground. The bones of her right hand fused into a sharp spike, and with it, she speared the beast's chest. It was over. My parents wanted to force me to marry. She was already dead, but the demonic blood that had been poisoning her body for months prolonged the agony of death. She didn't ask to be finished off. She didn't realize something was wrong with her. Her belly grew quickly, but not enough for her to suspect. Rather, all suspicions were quickly dispelled under the demon's influence inside her womb. Now she remembered everything. Her last wish before dying was to speak out. Mara, Hel, and Clementine with the insane Augustus were her last companions before death. He was old, fat, and bad, and he smelled bad. I don't know why, but he seemed slippery to me like a snake. Greasy. I didn't want to be with him, especially after learning what sex was. She frowned, speaking. The blizzard was slowly but surely dying down, revealing distant flashes over the city. Something was happening out there. Something was wrong. But it could wait. In a world where death was inseparable from life, people learned to respect it. Seeing and hearing the dying was a duty that might one day return to you. Too many died alone during the pandemic. Too many died one by one afterward. People learned to live anew. Then I ran away at night. It was cold as always, but I was so angry. I was in so much pain, she cried, clutching her hands to her belly, to her unborn child. Even now, knowing what was inside, she couldn't give it up. I couldn't go back home, stupid. I wanted to die there in the forest from the cold. Wanted them to regret my death. Wanted to prove something. He was there. That creature with glowing violet eyes. I couldn't resist. His eyes, they were so close, he did something to me. Suppressed my will, but not the pain. And I screamed, tearing my throat in agony as he did it to me. And then everything disappeared. A snowy blizzard covered both the pain and fear and sadness. I forgot that night. I told my family I slept with some traveling boy in town. They believed. And that fat man who wanted to marry me refused. Said that who knows what diseases that guy might have had. And then everything became meaningless. My belly started growing. My family didn't love me. A freeloader, a nobody, and now with a belly. They hated me but couldn't throw me out. What would people say? They tolerated. Until I met Chris and ran away with him. A warm smile flashed across the girl's face. I loved him more than life. Didn't pay attention to what was happening to me. Accepted everything as it was, believing it was just a hard pregnancy. Starving hunger, I nipped in the bud, constantly chewing something, believing the child would be strong and hardy, that Chris would never regret choosing me. And then he died and everything collapsed. The traitors hated me. They were going to take everything from me. I knew I shouldn't have claimed the inheritance. After all, the child wasn't Chris. And I was a stranger, but I was pregnant. And they were going to leave me alone, condemning me to starvation and cold. To death, she screamed, tearing her voice. When Kelvin, who was my husband's close friend, told me this, something snapped inside. I broke and something came out. I killed because the child needed special food. And then I forgot what I had done. I washed the bloody clothes, mended and sewed. Didn't pay attention to what I did. That's how it was. I killed the doctor because he suspected something was wrong with me. I killed the guards because they didn't save my husband. And I killed everyone else because they were condemning me to a slow death. You spared Augustus and Tina, Mara noted cautiously. Tina was the only one who treated me well. She was the only one who cared for me, sharing my burden. I would have spared her family too, but Paul was the head of the caravan and could have given me at least some money. He didn't, so I killed him along with his wife, who realized during childbirth what I was carrying. That's why I killed the elder son. My revenge. Augustus was a good boy. I wanted him to take care of Tina when it was all over. You killed everyone, Tina whispered, large tears rolling down her cheeks. And myself. I shouldn't have run into the woods. I should have obeyed my parents. Everything would have been different now. She softly smiled at Tina, and then quietly slipped away to another world. Only after that did hell cut her belly open and decapitate the white fetus. The girl died as a human. After Mara's blow, her features became human again. Mara thought it was good to die being oneself. Where's Augustus? Tina's worried voice echoed. The girl stood with her back to Evridica, scanning the small courtyard. Augustus, Augustus, she screamed, and getting no response, ran along the tracks left in the snow by the boy. "Tina," Mara hissed, growing increasingly irritated. She didn't like the girl's impulsiveness. Her hysteria over her family's death broke out sharply. She disobeyed Mara's orders, pretending not to understand what was being said. Mara had to follow her. The third stayed behind, trying to determine what kind of demon Evridica's offspring was. What was this species? "Tina, wait." The girl turned a corner and disappeared from Mara's sight. "Tina." A scream echoed, and Mara dashed forward. The blizzard had long subsided, the sky sprinkled with stars along with a crescent moon, grimly shining over the scene unfolding ahead. Augustus was pinned to the ground, and over him were two dogmen, tearing at the boy's flesh like paper. Tina pressed herself against the wall, covering her mouth with her hands, understanding that her scream had already been heard. One of the creatures lifted its bloodied head and hissed at the girl, revealing a beastly, rough, and very long tongue. "Don't move," Mara warned, stepping forward. For the second time in a day, she assumed her other form, thinking about Tina's luck. Only Mara could quickly deal with the dogman. Even the third would probably not have managed it before the girl got hurt. The speed was astounding, the air shifting like a breeze, and Mara was already behind the dogman rushing towards Tina. A swipe with her hand, and the head fell off the shoulders, while the girl approached the second creature, clinging to the ground like a frightened cat. Snowy dogmen always feared Mara. The girl never understood why, as other species could also kill them, but the creatures feared only her. It was all over. "I told you not to go far," Mara shouted hoarsely, turning to Tina. "I told you. Do you even understand? You almost got eaten by those creatures." "Where did they come from?" Tina's question surprised Mara, the most sensible question of all. Clementine held everything inside, hiding both pain and fear. She was trembling violently, but she clenched her hands into fists, accepting her life as it was. The girl didn't give up, didn't succumb to despair, and tried to think logically, even though the necessity made her sick. "We need to find the others. Looks like we found out why they're still not here," the third said, joining them. "I'm coming with you," Tina declared. "No," Mara objected. "Dear, you're just a human. You're a hindrance, unable to protect yourself. If I had come a little later, you would have been infected. If we return to the city, they will just kill you. Do you want that? But I have no other choice. If I stay here, you'll leave forever, and I'll be eaten sooner or later anyway. I don't want to wait for death. I want to live. I want to be part of your life, Mara. I can see clearly." She frowned, her face distorted in plea, her voice full of hope. "Believe me, I can tell you something about yourself if you want, but only if you take me from this city, if you take me into your squad." The third handed a short knife to Tina. "Cut off your friend's head and we'll take you with us." "What?" came the simultaneous exclamation from Mara and Tina. "It's a good gift. Tina will become a vampire and her gift will be enhanced. Mara, it's a good deal," the third responded. "Why should I do this?" the girl asked again, stumbling. "Otherwise he'll rise, sweetheart," she smirked, not taking her eyes off Mara. Cold and unblinking, Mara understood the reason. Turning around, she looked at the empty eye sockets of the black building where so many corpses remained. Her soul felt chilly from the grim picture. They had completed the mission, but only one caravan member survived. Clementine, the orphan with the gift of clear vision. A cursed gift that had already interested Al. "Fine," Mara agreed, turning and meeting the third's gaze. "Tina, do it. We don't have much time. The city is dying. We need to get out of here before the snowy dogmen find us. If that happens, Hel and I will survive. You won't." The girl hesitated briefly, catching snippets of cries filled with pain and agony. She accepted Hel's knife and approached Augustus. Crouching, she stared at the corpse for a moment, trying to imprint his face in her memory. The last of her close friends. Tina's thoughts were filled with shame for the joy she felt at Augustus's death. The boy had gone mad, but he had been her friend. She couldn't have abandoned him, so the relief from the burden of responsibility was mixed with such pain and shame. She glanced shyly through the wave of unkempt hair at the two supernatural girls. Tina wanted to be like them. Strong, confident, unafraid of either future or past. She wanted to leave the caravan behind, forget the exhausting journey, the semi-starved life, and rare visits to her home. She wanted to feel independent, something she had been deprived of since birth, because the new era repeated the old path, and women would not soon have the right to decide how to live. People desperately wanted to restore their population, so now every girl was a commodity. Tina wanted to avoid this fate, and she swung the knife. The girls left the city through the path Mara had planned to use. The second led them through the back of the prison building adjoining the city wall and ordered them to leave while she tried to find the others. Alone, Mara collapsed to her knees, clutching her head, splitting with pain. It had always been this way, just not so severe. Any large gathering of snowy dogmen caused pain, apathy, and fear. It was an exciting feeling of a victim not wanting to defend their life, a foreboding of terrible pleasure, a connection between the killer and the ready-to-die victim. Mara feared her feelings, feared the excitement from the snowy dogman's presence. It was too much for her, quickly turning into unrelenting headaches. Overcoming her weakness, she rose and trudged toward the city. She needed to find the first. An unwelcoming city, gloomy and grim. The people here were warriors, defending their lives, but their strength wasn't enough. Sometimes, snowy dogmen roamed the deserted lands in packs and occasionally stumbled upon walled cities. Sensing the heartbeats of hundreds of people behind the walls, they gathered outside, calling their kin, seeking the slightest crack in the stone. The city was doomed. People would leave it in the coming hours. Those who were late would die and turn into snowy dogmen, moving in a pack to new cities. This happened if the dogmen weren't exterminated while there were still few. The city leader focused too much on hunting the beast, missing the threat from outside, and then it was too late. Mara moved across the rooftops, sensing two vampires ahead. They were fighting, defending their lives. But the enemies were too many, and Mara transformed for the third time that night, causing waves of fear among the creatures feasting in the city streets. The girl reveled in freedom and the sense of superiority over them. Changing her speed, she leaped from the last roof and landed softly in the midst of the dogmen surrounding the vampires. "Mara!" the first shouted, and the girl dodged the dogman's claws to bring her bone spear down on him in the next moment. The fight was short, just a dozen snowy dogmen, nothing for two vampires and Mara. When the last one was finished, the first spoke. "Our supplies, horses, and reward are safe. A spare stable in the north of the city. The gates there got stuck several years ago, so the locals won't touch our things. The three of us can break down the doors and leave the city, but we need to hurry." "How did they get into the city?" Mara asked, easily moving to the run. "A tunnel under the gates," the fourth answered. "Those who built this city didn't think to throw stones in the ground, and here's the reckoning." "Efficient," the girl replied wearily, feeling her strength leaving. Al, we completed the mission. The beast was Evritica, we dealt with her. But the caravan was destroyed. Only Clementine, Paul's daughter, survived. She asked to join our squad. The girl sees clearly, doesn't she? The first recalled. Exactly. Mara nodded. Good, he agreed easily. They both knew that young vampires were born easily and died easily now. Only flexibility and a will to survive at any cost guaranteed that the girl could live through her first year. That was right. In the first squad, there was no place for the weak, and there would be no concessions for Tina. On the way to the stable, they encountered only a couple of dogmen and a small group of locals begging for rescue. The first just sped up, ignoring their pleas. We're mercenaries, not saviors. We're not heroes. We get paid for the job, and when the price is too high, we leave. Saving 10 people who don't know how to take care of themselves, don't know which end to hold a sword, a crossbow, or an ancient pistol is downright foolish. They're a burden on the shoulders of the dead city leader and will soon follow him, Mara thought. Leaving the city, the girl looked back only once. Over the southern part of the city, thick plumes of smoke rose into the sky. Fire spread over the warehouses, consuming the southern traders' loot. The second pressed her lips, burying in her memory yet another dead city. What's next, Al? What's the deal you want to make? She asked quietly, as the squad covered most of the way to the next stronghold. They decided to turn Tina in a month when they reached the city they called their home. The girl accepted the terms of the deal without a word and received an unofficial number. 13th. A beautiful number. An army, Mara. We need a well-armed and trained army. The only chance to overthrow the king is to do what he hasn't done. To surpass him so that everyone turns away from him. Al spoke steadily. The squad moved along the snow-covered road. The horses lifted and lowered their hooves heavily. The snow was too thick and sticky due to the sudden thaw. They were lucky to find lard in the supplies, which, though temporarily, saved them from the formation of heels. The sun shone brightly in the sky. For the first time in the week they had spent in the city. The mood was rising, and only Tina remained sad. The loss of meaning in life, family, and all familiar hit her hard, so she sometimes cried at night. Hell assured that these attacks would soon pass. The only thing was not to interfere. The girl had to cope with her grief on her own, or it would fester inside her like a splinter, poisoning her life forever. An army will allow us to clear the eastern coast of all supernatural rabble, including snowy dogmen. A serious plan, Mara noted. Are you sure it will work? We'll find out the day after tomorrow. I hope the sunny weather holds, and we reach the city quickly. Ask our clear-sighted one, Mara smiled, nodding at Tina. Tina, tell us, will the sun stay with us to the city? The girl, waking from her half-sleep, nodded and focused. Now, every time she used her gift, her eyes faded, like a real seer's. The first considered this a good sign. Yes, we'll be there soon, she spoke, then opened her mouth as if wanting to add something, but hesitated and fell silent. Her eyes regained their light green shade, and she smiled, trying not to look at Mara. The journey will be easy, she said, earning an approving exclamation from Hel, the girl who would soon become her vampire mother. Did you see something about me? Mara asked when they stopped for the night. She led Tina aside, so the others wouldn't hear what they were discussing. Mara felt it was more important than anything else the girl had said. She suspected it had something to do with her past. No one knew that Mara was born on the road where she met the mercenary squad. Something had happened to her before that, causing the girl to lose her memory. She wandered the road, living moment to moment, knowing neither herself nor her past. She was all instincts, which led her to transform into her other form when attacked by vampires. That's when she found her voice and the ability to think coherently. However, she didn't share her story with others, fearing it would be seen as a weakness, and weakness was punishable. So the girl suppressed all her soul's impulses, believing in the squad's unity, fearing she might become unnecessary to them. Sometimes she wondered who she could have been. What was her past? What was she like? Kind, evil, or indifferent? Did she have family, friends, loved ones? A lover? Did she have a family? She hoped she wasn't the only one. That other supernatural beings like her roamed out there. Meanwhile, the girl went with the flow, integrating into Al's squad. She liked him. His swiftness, confidence in his rightness, ability to be cunning when needed, belief in his strength, authority. He was the kind of man with whom she felt free, equal. He never pressured her, but the girl almost always followed his orders without question. She liked to please him, and he took care of her when she needed it. "Mara, you'll lose everything," Tina whispered. She still didn't look at the girl, staring at the snowy ground. The girl frowned, stubbornly clenching her lips. She didn't like speaking, but some inner force kept her from stopping, making her say unpleasant things. "Understand? Again, you'll lose everything and find yourself on the road all alone." "How do you see it?" Mara asked cautiously, cold spreading through her body. Being alone again. How painful to hear this from a clear-sighted one. "I don't see it. I just repeat the words that come to mind." She glanced apologetically at Mara. "Sorry. You can't change it. I know that." She nodded sympathetically. "In the future, people will often say bad things because of your gift. People will start to avoid you, afraid to hear something bad, and others will line up, hoping for the best. It's a hard fate, but you can't escape it. It's good you joined our squad. Only by becoming a vampire can you become strong enough to bear the burden of the gift. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "Yes," the girl nodded, furrowing her brow and coming closer. "One thing comforts me. I'm not you. Your fate is 100 times harder. How does it feel to be the bearer of this world's future?" "What are you talking about?" Mara took a step back, stumbled and narrowly avoided falling into the wet snow. The girl didn't answer. She seemed to have fallen out of the conversation in reality. Lowering her eyes, she trudged towards the camp. Mara didn't dare call out to her, fearing to hear something worse. The second turned her back to the others and stared into the snowy forest's depths. Tree branches, covered in soft snow, lit the ground white, creating stunningly bright winter colors, visible only to supernatural beings. Green, blue, purple, hundreds of diverse cold winter shades. This beauty fascinated, freezing even Mara's anxious soul. The girl pushed her anxiety deeper, pulling feelings out of her heart, leaving only strength. Only this way could she deal with herself and move forward. Only this way could she overcome Tina's words. She needed this. Alistair watched Mara, frozen against the white winter backdrop, and smiled. This girl deserved some solitude after everything she had to do. He smiled, remembering the past when he saw her completely different. Then she was weak, broken, crushed by another man. Covered in blood, unconscious, with tear-stained cheeks. A wounded little girl. That's how he remembered her. Now Mara had gained strength. Gained confidence. The ability to say no with a smile. A completely different person. Alistair couldn't believe she was capable of such things. And of course he knew what had happened to her and kept this secret, understanding that there were others in this world who needed Mara. Who would want to take her? You won't get to them, Leia, because now you're strong enough to fight them off, right? He asked the wind softly. Alistair smiled, never taking his eyes off her. A perfect predator, the Lamia. The only one who could give him what he wanted.